For as long as I can remember, they've been telling us to enjoy it while they're young, but our days are filled with chaos and stress and cooking and endless laundry piles. Where's the time to enjoy it? Yeah, that's what I always thought too. There's so much I have to do. When do I find time for peace and joy and happiness when I barely have time to sleep? Mama, it's time to make shift happen. You can be a happy mom. If I can, you can. Trust me. I've been a mess. I've been depressed. I've been overwhelmed. I've been to the bottom of the pits, and I've risen. I've grown. I've bloomed. And it all started when I realized I didn't have to anything. I get to. It is my privilege and my honor and my divine responsibility to be the queen of my home. It's not a burden. I'm not a burden. I'm in charge. I'm the ruler. I'm the chaos coordinator. I'm the calm in the storm. And so are you. Come with me. Let's rise, mamas. Adjust your crown. Accept your responsibility. Change the effing world together. It's all in the way we choose to see it. I'm so glad you're here, friend. You're listening to Meant to Bloom with Brittany Clarkson. Welcome in, my friends. I'm so glad to have you joining me on another episode of Meant to Bloom. Today's episode, I am so excited to be sharing this with you. It is a topic that I can talk on endlessly, and I found a new friend, Natasha Mila, who can do the same. I was so blessed to have this conversation with her. It is so authentic and just truth-filled, just diving deep on ease without guilt. And Natasha and I both opened up and shared what guilt feels like to us and discovered that guilt feels different to both of us. I am so excited to share this episode with you, and I would love for you to reach out to me or Natasha. Go over on Instagram. We're both there. She is _ Natasha Mila _ I am at Britt Clarkson. And we'd both be happy to chat with you about what guilt feels like to you. Go tag us in your stories and your posts. Let us know how this episode resonates with you. Okay, as you may know, I'm currently in a season of letting peripheral things go and be as easy and as possible in order to very peacefully prioritize my life. My focus right now is on family, and I'm trying to let my actions reflect that and be very intentional about how I'm spending my time. I am infusing my life with peace ruthlessly any way I possibly can. Peace means action too, though, sometimes, right? But here's two absolute truths that I'm talking about in this episode with Natasha. One, easy isn't always simple. And two, guilt is garbage. The last year, I put a heavy focus on letting things be easy. I had no idea at that time that I would have to overcome so many mental roadblocks before that could really happen. Easy isn't always easy, especially when it comes with guilt that you're not doing enough. Hey friend, Happy New Year. I wanted to let you know about this challenge I'm hosting at the end of the month. So you got plenty of time to get in on it. But starting January 30th, I'm going to be hosting my 5-day Mindset Realign challenge. I haven't hosted this in about a year, and wow, I hadn't realized how long it had been since I'd hosted it. So I'm really, really excited to get back into that. And in this 5-day challenge, we will be setting intentions, working on affirmations for our negative thoughts. We'll be, setting life goals, talking about our enoughness, and just really aligning with our mindsets and getting that mentality just back in check. You can never check your mind enough. So mindfulness is a big key in this one. And I would love to have you join me. I'm going to include a link in the description below to go ahead and get signed up for that. And I'll send you emails when everything's getting started and how to get into the Facebook group where we'll be chatting about it and hosting all the live videos every day. So I'd really love to have you in there. Thanks. Why don't we go ahead and start with you introducing yourself?
Perfect. Sounds good. So my name is Natasha Mila. That's actually my middle name, but that's what I go by. And I just started a website. It's just my name, natashamila.com. And I have a podcast, Just Mom, GIST Mom. And yeah, I used to be a 4K teacher for the last, like a couple years ago, for 5 years. And now I'm staying at home with our 3 little kids. They're 3. Our oldest is 3, Lainey. Our middle is gonna be 2 at the end of January. Her name's Dakota, and our youngest is Grayson, and he is almost months old. He'll be 6 months old in a couple days, actually. Actually, yeah, 2 days. In 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I think I might have the same age gaps between my kids.
Oh, okay, that's crazy. Yeah, it's kind of wild, isn't it?
Yeah,
So how
right.
old are your kids?
My youngest is going to be 3 in February.
Okay.
My oldest turned 6 in October, and the middle one
Okay.
is 4 right now.
So
It
fun.
is it is
Yeah,
so
so
fun.
yeah, that's very close together. How do you
Yeah,
like it now that they're a little bit older? You're like at the next stage up.
right. I love it. I do. It's really exciting, like being out of the baby phase with all of them.
Yes, yes.
Like, yeah, it's a whole new world. It is so fun.
Yeah, that's nice. I love snuggly babies, but they are exhausting. I'm not a really huge fan of the baby ear.
Right. Yes. I like when they're like 2 and they still kind of want to snuggle like a baby, but also they can totally play independently and like you could just put snacks in front of them and they're like, "Yep, cool. I'm good to go. I don't need
Yeah.
you to hold me and feed me."
Oh, right, exactly. And other people are a lot more comfortable like watching them for a couple hours here and there when they get past the baby year too. So that helps a lot.
Yeah, a little less fragile.
Yeah, right, exactly. I listened to like a couple of your podcasts. So, and you used to be called something else, I think, right? Did you have like a different name?
It's a funny story.
Yeah. And then you kind of did like a little transformation and now you're meant to bloom. It seems like the last like couple episodes it sounds like I must have listened like right at that cusp of you changing and on. And it sounds like you're really confident in this current role. Like this is like where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's actually where I started. That's what's funny
Okay.
about that is that I started a podcast last year
Yeah.
called Meant to Bloom. But I was transitioning out of being a blogger into a podcaster, and things were kind of awkward. And I was like reading a lot instead of speaking. And people could really tell, like, I had friends tell me that like, once I started podcasting and not just reading my blog, they were like, I can really tell, like, the change in your voice. Like, there's so much more passion and emotion in it now. You've really
Yeah.
grown and developed. And I was like, yeah, it's because I stopped reading out loud. Like, I was just reading things I'd written a year before. And that
Oh,
podcast was called Meant to Bloom. And then once I kind of like figured out how to podcast, I was like, I'm gonna relaunch. It's time for something new. Let's rebrand. And I changed the name and I had a lot of positive feedback about it from people. But after, so many episodes, I was just like, this doesn't feel fun to like tell people I'm the host of the I Get To podcast. It doesn't sound the way Meant to Bloom podcast sounded. I was like,
yeah.
I need to go back to that. Like I stole my own name back.
Like 2.0, like meant to bloom 2.0.
Yeah,
Fun.
yeah. So yeah, it definitely does feel like where I'm supposed to be, but it was a long story of getting here.
Yeah. That sounds like everybody's life, right? Like once you get to
Right.
that point, you're like, oh, it seems so simple, but now hindsight, right? Always hindsight.
Right. Absolutely. You like just started your podcast like a couple months ago or something?
Yeah, for sure. I
Okay.
like just released a couple episodes. I just recorded 2 new ones yesterday actually. So hopefully I just have to edit them and put them out. But yeah, I've had this in the works for like a really long time. I've always been a blogger, but I just kept changing the type of blog I had, not because I didn't like what I was blogging about, but just because the season of my life kept changing, right? So, like, I started way back in college, I just wrote like random stuff on there, because it's circa that year,
Same.
people just wrote random things online, right? But then it evolved into so like my undergrad, I worked at while I was in undergrad, I actually worked in a 4K classroom at a private school there. And so I started doing like kid activities, but it just wasn't really what I wanted to be talking about. Like I sure could come up with 8 more kid activities, but there's like a plethora of them on the internet. So I was like, I don't want to add to this noise. Like it's just not what I want
Yeah.
to do. But what I wanted to talk about was like the other kind of stuff about kids, but I just didn't feel like I was there yet because I wasn't also a parent, right?
Mhm.
So then I kind of changed gear and we are big like backpacker outside people. I then wrote about our trips backpacking really just for fun again. And then when I was a teacher, I did like a teacher blog for my parents of like the kids' parents of our classroom. So we just kind of have done I've always typed words onto the internet. But now I feel like I have things to say that I've wanted to say for a while, and I like to talk. So I thought a podcast is a great way to do that. And honestly, that's like how I, as a mom with very little time, consume a lot of information is podcasts or
Mhm.
audiobooks and stuff because you can just stick one earbud in and do the dishes and whatever else you need to do. So that's who I'm writing to. So I wanted to cater to that need of a mom that's very busy. And so I want to have that long format on the blog still, but then talk about it in a podcast form. And I think it's a little bit more relatable too when you can hear somebody actually saying it out loud. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel like tone gets, like, misunderstood less often on a podcast.
Oh, for sure. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah, you can't misunderstand. Well, you kind of can, I guess, if you don't know that
A
person,
little bit,
you don't know their
right?
intention, but yeah. But for the most part, yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, I tend to write, like, I don't know, kind of sarcastically or satirically a little bit sometimes,
Sure.
and I
Yeah.
didn't realize that for, like, years of blogging and not realizing, like, people could really be misunderstanding this when I
Yeah.
go back and read it without the tone of my voice.
Yeah. And
It's
sometimes
definitely benefit.
right. And sometimes like the headspace you're in too, like I write an email, like a weekly email to my email subscribers, and I have a lot of fun with it. And I put like a lot of gifts in there. Is that how you say that word? Gifts? A lot of
Mhm.
gifts in
Yeah.
there and like fun stuff. And so like the headspace that you're in, you're like, this is funny and it's very entertaining. But then like if you go back months later, you're like, okay, does that even really make sense? Hopefully that made sense to everybody at the time, but it's a little confusing.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully they got the joke, but yeah, but thank God for gifts, right? Because they really add to that. Like, I am making a joke. I
Yes. Yes. I hear people say it's Jif, and I
don't
hate
know.
that.
I don't
So
know how
I'm
to.
on the GIF train. I
Yeah,
am.
whatever. Yeah,
Jif is peanut butter. So
yeah, yeah. It's a J. Yeah,
that's how
yeah.
I see it.
Sure. Uh huh.
So
Yeah,
for anyone listening, we're in agreement. It's GIF.
yeah. So we must be right. Two people agree. So that must be
Right.
what
In this corner of the internet, we're going with GIF.
it.
And they're the best. Um, all right. So let's dig in to what we're
Yeah.
really here to chat about. Letting things be easy without feeling guilt about it. And, especially as moms, like, wow, guilt comes easy and ease does not.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's true. Very true. Yeah, I was gonna like make a couple notes about guilt. So like we're constantly setting priorities and changing those priorities, right? Depending on the size of that priority, you might be like changing the order of importance and by day or by year or by minute, really, like what's important to you that day. Um, so like for example, like family comes first for a lot of people, right? But like what does that actually mean and what does that actually look like for you that
Mhm.
day? So like one day that might mean you're like prioritizing healthy meals and getting everybody outside and spending a lot of time together. And like another day that might mean you have to tackle that 75 things on your to-do list. So it might mean your kids are watching TV for 2 hours that day, right? So both things still mean that you're prioritizing your family. It just looks a little bit different. Um, and so I guess those like constantly shifting priorities, you only have so much time in your day to do a priority. And so what that means is going to look different. And so I guess you're always going to feel that guilt, right? So I guess instead of saying like you're going to be not feeling guilt at all about certain things that you make easy, you're just kind of living with it like despite your guilt. Like you're just saying, okay, I feel a little guilty about it, but I'm letting that go. And this is just where I'm at. And this is just what we have to do in order for these priorities to kind of line up for the day. So getting to that point where you feel a little better about the guilt that you're living with, right?
Yeah, that's interesting
hmm
because I view guilt a little bit differently, as
Okay, let me
in,
know that.
I feel like I've kind of divorced guilt.
Oh, yeah, you're just like,
Like,
I don't do guilt.
I'm just like, every time it tries to come back in the door, I'm just like, no, we changed the locks. You're not allowed here.
Yeah,
Um, I don't want you in my life anymore. And
yeah,
so I won't let it, like have a seat at the table.
yeah.
And mostly it's because the way I view guilt is just, it doesn't help.
Sure. So, okay, so that's so interesting because I am like totally the opposite. Like, I actually feel like it motivates me a little bit.
Mhm.
So, okay, I wanna hear your side, and then I'll kind of like rebuttal you a little.
Yeah. Okay. Now that you said that, I think it's a personality type difference kind of
Sure.
thing, maybe.
Mhm, mhm,
Because to me, guilt, I also have this like, I have trouble with moderation when it comes to
mhm.
pretty much anything. And I have this long history of depression and anxiety that is very much rooted in allowing negative thoughts to take hold and to believe them as true. And
Sure.
so when guilt tries to come in, it immediately is trying to convince me, like, you're a really bad mom for this. You shouldn't even try. You need to give up right now. Um, and then it'll just like start trying to get every single area of my life. And so that's why I've had to be like, once it starts to come in, I have to remind myself, that's not going to help me get this done. It's
Yeah.
going to distract me from doing it. And it's just going to make me feel bad about it. And it's not really like a motivating factor for me. So I think that's
Yeah.
interesting that it motivates you.
Yeah, no, that's totally interesting. It's like an antagonist for you. You're like, please do not enter my space because you are a problem for me. So go away. And this is just what I'm doing. You like stop it at the door. Yeah, I a little differently, I guess. I don't mind it being in the room. Like I'm like, okay, you can come in the door. Like I see you, I hear you. But I feel like because the things that I feel guilty about, the reason I feel guilty about them is because they are actually still on my priority list. Like, I feel guilty about things like healthy eating or finances or like spending time and whatever. So, those are all still things that are like on my priority list. What's up, Dakota? You can open it up for a second. What do you need? Okay, well, go back over in the living room if you don't need anything. Um, okay, so I do like not mind when guilt's around just because I feel like I like to keep those priorities in the back of my mind and be like they are important to me, like I haven't forgotten that I want to be better in those areas of my life, but I just don't have the time and energy to do all of the things to make that end goal of that priority happen yet. Like one day I'll like I always kind of view guilt as like like a little push. Like I'm like working my way to be better in certain areas. So it's always like pushing me to be better instead of just like stopping and being like totally like letting all these things go, right? Like it's always in the back of your mind, like, oh, I I want to be better at healthy eating, but I just don't have time to make healthy snacks today, and it's okay. But yeah, so I don't want to like totally forget about those things that are important to me, but I understand the amount of time that I have and like my capacity for the season that I'm in, I guess.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And what I'm feeling like I'm hearing is that your voice of guilt is a lot nicer than my voice of guilt.
Yeah, it does sound like that. Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of sits and waits by the door and yours is like yelling at you.
Yeah, yeah, mine's not really here to help.
No, no.
All right.
Yeah, yours puts like it sounds like yours puts like negative thoughts into your head where mine is like, okay, remember, I'm here. But I'll let you go for a minute,
Right.
but, like, I'm still here. I'm just sitting, waiting. And
Right.
yours is like, all these terrible things are gonna happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine feels more like it's a mean girl.
Yeah.
Just wants to tear me down and send me down a spiral. And yours seems like almost more like a coaching role. Like, you need to get to this. Like, maybe it might be nagging you, but it's not trying to hurt you.
Right, exactly.
That's interesting. I'm glad to have this chat with the different viewpoint and the different experience of how guilt actually like feels and sounds.
Yeah, for
So that's really neat.
Okay, so do you do anything that you have, like, made easier in your life that you are letting guilt go?
I mean, basically I've let guilt go on everything every time it tries to come in. Um, Specifically, a lot of it revolves around home care and cooking dinner. Uh, because I felt this need to overcomplicate these things and not let them be easy for so long. And I'm not good at either of them. So that was not a healthy combination to put a huge priority on like I need to have my house totally clean and I'm not someone who's good at cleaning and I wasn't at the time someone who was willing to ask for help from anybody, whether it's hiring help or, asking my mom to come in and help or asking my husband to help out more than he already does. Like I was unwilling. I was like, this is my role that I chose when I begged to stay home from work before having kids. And I was like, this was the agreement that I made that was all my choice and my decision. And so I took all that on and I put a lot of pressure and expectation on myself with keeping a kitchen clean and having a perfectly balanced hot meal ready. And I mean, this predates me even having kids. This is like me being a stay-at-home wife. And I was like, it's just me at home all day with two dogs and a couple cats, and I can't do this. And so the guilt was really getting to me that like I couldn't keep up with the kitchen. And I never took into factoring the fact that I was seriously struggling with depression and anxiety. Didn't know at the time that I very much have a lot of traits of ADHD. Um, like it's like everything like inside my head is against me to get this done, and yet I'm making it the number one priority in my life and thinking that I'm a complete failure if I don't do it.
Sure.
And so I had like that time with my husband coming in the kitchen and finding me crying because I just was having a major panic attack while trying to cook dinner in a messy kitchen that I had already spent like half an hour trying to catch up on and clean. And he's like, well, why are you even making dinner tonight? Why don't you just pull out the frozen lasagna in the freezer? I was like, because that's too easy. I can't do that. That's not enough work for you. Like, that's not good enough. And he's like, I'd be fine with pizza. The agreement was just that if I come home from work after a long day, that I'm not the one who cooks dinner anymore. Like, it's like he didn't care the quality of the food. He just wanted something done because I said something would be done. And when you come home hungry expecting food, you're hungry expecting food. He was not asking for, Betty Crocker, Rachel Ray quality meals. He was like, fine if you order food, like just have something ready, have something in the oven. And the thing about the lasagna was it wasn't even a store-bought lasagna that I was having trouble with. It was a lasagna that I had made myself and put in the freezer. I'm like, I did put in the work weeks ago, and I still feel like it's not enough.
Yeah,
And
you were
that was really when it hit me. I was like, this is not a healthy mindset that I have.
yeah.
There is something wrong, like some bridge not being gapped in my brain that says it's okay to have an easy to prepare dinner.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so funny that you even made the lasagna. Like, it wasn't even really that easy, like, you had already done
Right.
the full cooking of the lasagna. Were you thinking, like, I was home all day, so I should make the meal instead of, like, and that should be saved for, like, a day when we're out, really, really busy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so I
That's
think back to that every time I'm really trying to let things get super hard or,
yeah.
I finally did hire someone to come in and deep clean the house because after, like, 6 years of being in charge of cleaning the house, I realized I'm never going to get to the window tracks. I'm not gonna get if I haven't done it yet, I'm not gonna get to it. I need someone to come in and do that. And that ended up being one of the best days ever because I took the time that they were in the house. I took all the kids out and played with them at the park. And I
Sure.
actually played with them because I wasn't stressed about going home and doing everything that I wasn't doing while at the parks. I'm like, someone else is doing it finally. And I can just enjoy this moment with my kids. And that was just the best thing. And so I try to remember those kinds of things every time the guilt wants to come in and be like, we're not doing the lasagna thing again. This there's better ways to spend my time. I can actually enjoy this moment if I push guilt out instead of sitting here, trying to play with my kids, but having that guilt that there's dishes on the sink. Um, like I struggled with that for so long. The whole like, well, the dishes can wait. I was like, yeah, they'll be sitting there waiting, and I'll have this guilt the whole time nagging at me. I know they're waiting. They're waiting for me. It's not a good thing that they're waiting.
Yeah, no, definitely. Right. I do like have a problem have have a problem with those words that are said like, "Oh, just, forget about them." And you're like, "Forget about it." Like, how does somebody just forget about it? Like, it's always there in the back of your head. Like, it's a task that I have to do that got added to my to-do list. Like, it's still there. Even if you
Right.
wrote it down, it's still there. You still have to do it. But yeah, yeah, definitely. That's nice. Like that you recognized that I think it's great that you have that significant story too to like kind of go back on and be like, nope, no more lasagna story. It's not happening again. So that you have something to hold on to every time that kind of sneaks up on you for sure. Yeah, like we've talked about, my guilt isn't like a antagonizer. Like it's kind of I recognize that it's there, but I just kind of accept that it is just like I'm just gonna have to live despite the guilt, basically. So I'm just living with it in the back of my head instead of making me unable to do like anything really. Because yeah, sometimes guilt can totally be paralyzing, right? Like it just
Yes.
prevents you from doing all of the things instead of tackling one at a time. But you're just like, I have so many things that I'm prioritizing, and so I'm just gonna do none of them. um, but yeah, we just like I said, I can kind of categorize the areas of things that I feel a little guilty about because I always do prioritize or I want to prioritize them, but you can't prioritize everything, right? Especially if you're like an idea person, you just have a million ideas and you will not be able to
Hmm.
deal with them, right? And I think I kind of touched on it before too, like that sometimes you have a priority like I want to be healthy or I want to spend time with my kids, but like you can't spend 24 hours with them and you can't only prioritize your health, right? So the end goal of those things is something that you're working towards and you're not there yet, right? So you aren't going to feel like you've met that priority for a really long time if ever, right? You're just kind of always in the movement towards this thing. But I Yeah, so one of the things is like healthy eating, right? And so
Hmm.
I we our kids go to our two older girls go to dance class on Monday nights. And I don't really feel bad about this, even though I feel like partly sometimes you feel guilty when you think that there's onlookers that are judging you, right?
Right.
So so I we go to dance class and we it's right over dinner time. And so there's this break in between both girls' dance classes, and that's when we eat dinner at the dance studio. And I bring very unhealthy, random foods. I always think in my head I'm gonna have enough time to like prep something a little nicer, and it's been like a year of it, and I have yet to do so. So I've accepted the fact that we're just eating garbage on Monday nights for
Right.
dinner. And I bring paper plates and I put it in Ziploc baggies, like plastic Ziploc baggies. And something that's important to me besides the healthy eating is the like waste that we have in our house, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'd prefer to like bring it in containers and have this healthy snacks that we're eating or healthy dinner that we're eating, but we don't. And there is another mom that sits there at the same time, and she does always have like the nice, like reusable containers and definitely much more healthy foods, right? So I feel like that guilt can creep back like to the front of your mind. So like mine's always kind of hidden. You've like you're like I don't do guilt, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Mine is like always, it's there. It's in the back of my head. So, but it totally creeps back to the forefront when it is like visible. Like I
Right.
am looking at another human being doing what I want to be doing, but I didn't do that. And so then that guilt is kind of there. And so it is something where you just have to be like, I didn't prioritize that today. So I'm not going to do guilt about that today because
Yeah.
I made that choice. And that is the choice that I'm going to stay confident with. Like I was confident with it before we left the house because it's easy and I needed it to be easy today. But yeah. So just kind of those kind of things are, I've let them go because yeah, three little teeny babies, you need to make your life easier. And
Right.
yeah, like things, all of those like wasteful things that I dreamed in my head before I came a mom, like I'm gonna do cloth diapers, and then my kid went to daycare for the first year, and I was like, I'm not doing that, and I just now 3 kids in, we are still using disposable diapers, and I'm like, nah, you know, something that I
Yeah.
have a slight amount of guilt about, but I'm like, it is what we do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I like that language. I think like maybe I was listening to do you know the Gold Digger podcast, like Jenna Kutcher at all?
I am familiar. I think I might be subscribed, but I haven't listened in a while.
Sure. I think like not too long ago, I think it was her podcast, but I was listening to an episode and the words that they used where they were talking about making statements like that were a little bit more definitive. Like, I'm pretty sure they literally used the words, I don't do guilt. Like, somebody made that specific sentence in there. But I like that language because it's just like, you're really raring and ready to go with the confidence of like, I don't do this today. I'm not doing
Hmm.
guilt today. I'm not concerned about wasteful diapers. I'm not worried about using plastic bags and throwaway plates. Like it is what it is today.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. I listen to the Purpose Show with Ali Casaza a lot.
sure. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the language she uses is I'm not available for this. Like
Ah,
I'm not available to feel stressed about this right now. I'm not
ah,
available to let those emotions take the front seat. Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, language
yeah.
can be so
Don't have the
important. I
mental
mean, that can
space
be a
for
whole
them.
episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, was there any last notes you wanted to add in here? We have 2 minutes before it cuts me off.
Oh yeah. Um, no, I really don't think so. I think just yeah, I think just like really knowing that season that you're in. Um, and just like you said, what space you have available and how much you can handle. And as soon as it starts to like cause that guilt, cause that crazy anxiety to sneak up on you, that's when you have to be like, I, like you said, I'm not available, or I don't do this today because I don't have room. I don't have time to tackle that on and add that to my to-do list today. So, um, how can I make my life a little bit easier despite my guilt, right?
Yeah. All right. I love that. You want to just really quick say where like my followers could find you?
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, you can find me at natashamila.com. That's the easiest place. Or I hang out on Instagram a lot. So underscore Natasha Mila underscore is my handle. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of Meant to Bloom. It really does mean the world to me. But are you ready to take this a step farther? Check out the description below of this episode and grab your mindset makeover. It's totally free, my gift to you. Then hop on Instagram and let me know what you thought of this episode. Tag me at Britt Clarkson. That's BritClarkson. If any part of this resonated with you, please let me know by tagging me or leave a review and share on social media so other mamas can find this too. If it helped you, it's going to help someone else. You're part of a movement now. Let's go.